is how we do the final form here. So input the form to record the cleaner's daily job star rating. It should include the number of cleaning jobs the cleaner has carried out and their average job star rating. Now, there's a sort of semi-cheat way of doing this if you're not sure how it all works. That would be to create a form very similar to the way that we created the form to register a new cleaner, which is to directly do it from the form wizard from the table. Okay, that wouldn't fulfill the whole part of the what you're being asked to do. It will give you the form and it will record another cleaner's daily job star rating. You would have to write in your evaluation the fact that it doesn't quite fulfill the design brief. So the way that we do this is kind of a bit convoluted. We have to think about the two things that we want already. We want the number of cleaning jobs the cleaner has carried out and their average daily job star rating. In order to get that, we need to use similar queries as to what we've used previously. So I'm just going to close that and go back to what we've already got as our database. So essentially we need to create a new query. Okay, so in our query design, we're going to first of all focus on the cleaner's daily average rating. So we want to have things from the cleaning table, from the cleaners table rather, okay, because we're going to need some of the information from here. We also want to have something from their jobs, because we want, if we want to have the daily average, that means that we're going to need to have the date in there, and that means that the job star rating that we're going to have in here, we're going to take the average of. So it's very similar to what we've already done, but remember the queries that we've already calculated have been the average daily star rating for the supervisors rather than for the cleaners. So I'm just going to close that bit in there. These have already been linked, so we're quite safe to go. So first of all, we'll have the cleaner ID in field number 1. We'll have the name and we'll have the surname. Okay, we're going to have the date of the cleaning service, and we're going to have the job star rating. Remember, if we want to therefore do an average, that means that we need to hit the totals button and then look at the average like that. Okay, so we're going to view it, see what it looks like. As you can see, what it looks like is for every cleaning service that they've done, we've got an average of that. That means that we actually need an additional query to take the average of the daily average, because we've got far too many records. What we want to end up with is for every one cleaner, we want to have their daily average. Okay, so what we've got is the daily average, so we've got all of the dates that those people have cleaned on, okay, and that's taken the average of all of the jobs that they've done on those dates. But now we want to reduce that to only containing one line for every cleaner that we've got. Okay, so far this is working absolutely fine. Okay, we're just going to save this. There we go. That took a little bit of a time. So remember, Control and S will give you the pop-up for your save. and we're going to save this as query underscore cleaners daily average rating. Okay, and then we're going to close that. Okay, so remember that this one is called the cleaners daily average rating rather than the average daily star rating that we had previously, which was sorted in terms of the supervisor. So that's kind of part A to that. We don't really need that bit anymore. Okay, so we're going to close that, and we're going to create the second of those queries. Okay, and we're going to take the query from what we have just done, which is the cleaners daily average rating. Okay, so that's what we've called it, and that's the only query that we're going to need for this one. So again, we're going to have the cleaner ID in here, we're going to have the cleaner name, and we're going to have the cleaner surname. This time we don't want to have the date. Okay, and we're now going to take the average of the average. So we're going to change, no, not change it to sum, change it to average. Okay, I'm going to run that, see what it looks like. Expand that. It's not very well rounded, okay, but we get the idea. We've now only got 32 records, so we've got one record for each of those cleaners. So this is basically their average daily, their average job rating across all of the jobs that they have ever done. Okay, hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. We're going to save this. So this query is going to be the cleaners. So the first one was the cleaners daily average. So this is their overall average. Okay, so cleaners average star rating. Okay, that's what we're being asked to display on the form that we are going to be developing from this. Okay, so now that one's absolutely fine. Now, in here, we have also got a query that we can utilize. So we've got a query that already says the number of jobs completed, okay, which has for us the cleaner ID, the cleaner name, the cleaner surname, and then the number of jobs that has been completed, okay, by each of those cleaners. We're going to go back into this and we're going to add in the query that we've just developed. So we're going to basically expand this query that we've got now. We want everything as it already is. We want the cleaner ID from the table from the cleaners, the cleaner name from the cleaner table, the cleaner surname from the cleaner table, the total number of jobs completed from the jobs table, and then finally we're going to put in here, let's show table, go to queries, and we're looking for the query that we have just put in, which is the cleaners average star rating. So that's that one in there. Okay, so I've double clicked, you can click and add. You'll notice that these are linked, which is really quite important, that there is a link between the cleaner ID here and the cleaner ID here. It doesn't look very clear that it is the cleaner ID with the cleaner ID link, so I just paused the video a little minute and made sure by right clicking that it was the right link, so we are quite safe. Alright, I'm not going to overcomplicate it by showing you how to do that. Alright, so All I'm essentially going to do here is it's not very clearly labelled here. We might go back and have a look at those labels. But essentially here, what I want is I want to display that. Okay, so we don't really need to call it the average of the average. Okay, we can just call it the average star rating. Remember, we use a colon, then when we run it, that's what's displayed. So this is really vital, because this is actually essentially all of the things that we need to be on our form. We want to be able to find the cleaner, and we want to display the cleaner name and the cleaner surname. We want to be able to add in a new job essentially, and also display the number of jobs completed and this average star rating. Okay, so that's going to be really important for setting up the form from the information that we've got here. That of course has already been saved as a name, so I'm just going to save the design and close that. Okay, so now we're actually getting on to creating the form. Now we're going to create the form from the query that we've got. Now it's a little bit strange really in terms of what we're going to do. Okay, don't worry about my funny pop-up that's happened there. Alright, so we're introducing again our form wizard. By default it's gone to the last query that we opened, which is the number of jobs completed. It's asking me what I want to have from here, so the cleaner ID, the cleaner name, the cleaner surname, the number of jobs completed, and the average star rating. I'm actually only going to take the number of jobs completed and the average star rating. Okay, so these things are going to be automatically linked into my table, into my form rather, and we'll have a little think about how we're going to get all the rest of them. Everything else is going to stay the same. I do not, however, want that to be the title for my form. Okay, so for our forms we use the FRM underscore, and this form is going to be about adding new jobs. It helps if we use the underscores. Okay, so I'm going to modify the form design and take a look at what it looks like here. So this is what it looks like in its form design. I'm just going to expand these a little bit here. So essentially these are the things I was hoping that all of those were going to go all together. Okay, we're going to move these down our form a bit because these are things that we just want to be displayed. I don't really want it to be called form adding new job. So we'll just change that title there. Okay, that should be all right. Let's have a look at what it looks like. Okay, so here we've already got data in there, and it shows you here when I do this, that those are each of the records that are already in that query for each of those cleaners that we've got. So right now it tells us that we've got 8 out of the 32. So I'll take that back to the beginning. Those are the things that we need to have. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my design view, and we're going to get some additional information into here. So essentially what we want to have is we want to have the information that we're going to use about the cleaner. Okay, we want to have all of that information in there. We also want, if we're adding a new job, to be able to allocate a date to it, and we want to be able to allocate the rating that the job has got. So remember, the form is essentially what potentially a secretary on the phone is going to use to say, this is it all now booked, and it's absolutely fine. Okay, so we need to make sure that we're in the design bit in here. I don't know why it didn't default to that. So what we're going to do is, if you remember what all these buttons mean at the top, okay, we've got labels. So labels are these things in here. And then we've got text boxes, and text boxes allow us to refer to things. And we've also got what is probably the most useful thing of all, which is our combo box. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a little combo box in here, and what you'll notice is that it automatically comes up with this combo wizard. So I want the combo box to get the values from another table or query. That's what I'm going to do for this combo box. And I'm going to get all of this information directly from the cleaners table. Okay, that's going to be the most useful thing for me to have, is it from the cleaners table. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like that and press next. Now remember that I said that I wanted to have the cleaner ID, and I also wanted to have the cleaner name and the cleaner surname coming from all of those things in there. Okay, so that's quite that's going to be quite important there. Okay, doesn't really matter how we sort our combo box. That'll be absolutely fine. We do want our key to be there. Okay, those are the available fields, and we'll be absolutely fine with that. So remember the value for later use. That's fine. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to actually, oh, we do want to call the label for the combo box cleaner ID. That's fine. Okay, so what that's done is given us the label cleaner ID and hopefully given us a drop down box. So there we go, something like that would appear, and then that's absolutely fine. That will hopefully work quite nicely. Okay, so back into our design view, we can make this box slightly smaller if we want, seeing as it's really only containing a number. These bits are really quite irritating, so sometimes they move together and sometimes they don't. Okay, so although in the drop down box the cleaner name appears there, I think it would be really quite good for the cleaner name to appear somewhere else down here. Okay, and in which case, when we're in the design view, we can use a text box to help us to do that. Okay, so the text box that we're actually drawing is, it says unbound at the moment, and it's going to be linked to here, and that's going to enable the two things to talk to each other. Alright, so down here, I'm going to say that I want it to be the cleaner's name. Let's have a little gap in there. And then here, at the moment, it's unbound. So what I want to do is I want to bind it to the one that I have already got. Okay, so in doing that, I am going to use the following notation. So I'm going to use a square set of brackets. Alright, now actually I've just thought before I do that I want to check what this is called. So when you enter a combo box in any way, okay, two things have been labelled. Firstly, there are words inside there that says cleaner ID. That's what we wanted to set it to. And over on the property sheet, it then asks us, so it shows us that this is a label, okay, and then also we need to think about, so the caption is what's inside it, and then the label is actually what the label is being called. Now this seems a little bit fussy, but it clears up quite a lot of issues later on. So I'm going to call that label cleaner ID. In here I've got a similar sort of thing. Okay, it has been taken from the label cleaner ID, and what I'm going to call it now is CBO for combo, and I'm going to call that combo cleaner ID. Okay, so what I'm doing is naming what this box is called. Okay, now that's quite important because when I go on to this is what I need to use. Okay, so I'm telling it to look at combo cleaner ID. Okay, finish off the square bracket, dot, another square bracket, column, finish off the square bracket, dot, and then I want it to look at column in brackets. Oh dearie me, get myself all in a pickle here, aren't I? There we go. Right, I've now got rid of my syntax error. I don't really know what was happening there. It was behaving quite strangely. So that's what it should look like. There wasn't anything wrong with my original syntax, but I just deleted it and typed it in again. Okay, so what that does now is when we have a look at what our form looks like, is that when the drop down occurs and I potentially say I want it to be cleaner number 1, that now cleaner number 1's name appears in there. Okay, so we're going to do the same sort of thing now with the surname. So this is where, in terms of your form design, you can fiddle around as much as you want with it, really. I want to have these things that they wanted to be displayed sort of at the bottom of my form. Okay, and then essentially I want to have my cleaner name and other things in there. Okay, so I'm going to add in another text box, which is going to be the same sort of thing, and this time this one's going to be called the cleaner surname. Obviously you want to try and make it as tidy as you possibly can. See what I mean? Sometimes they move at the same time, sometimes they don't move at the same time. There we go. Okay, so essentially what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste that into there, and then just change that to be in column number 2. Hopefully now when I drop down, there we go, the cleaner name and the cleaner surname has appeared on there. So that all seems to be working quite nicely. There are a few more things that we need to add into this. So essentially we've got now a drop down for our cleaner. It is just worth going through all of your labels. Okay, so at the side here when you click on that, the caption is cleaner ID and it's label cleaner ID. Here it's label cleaner ID and combo cleaner ID. And then we can just go through here and change the label names. Okay, so this is potentially name and the caption is cleaner name. And then here I don't want it to just say text like that. I want it to say text name. So essentially you're just tidying everything up. Here I don't want that to say label 10. Okay, so I'm going to say that's label surname, and then the actual text box itself is going to be text surname. Keeping all of these things nice and tidy is quite a good idea. Okay, so here we've got this is a label. So it shows it's called a number of jobs completed label. Okay, essentially I want to have the label bit at the front. And so we can just scoot along here and take off the label section at the back. And then again the label is coming from there and number of jobs completed. If you want to know where it's coming from, it tells you there what the control source is. So it tells you that it's coming from number of jobs completed and that it's coming from that form. That all looks fine. This one here, go to all, average star rating. I want the label bit at the front and taking off the label bit at the back, and then average star rating, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so everything seems to be going okay so far. We now want to be able to find the date and the cleaning service and the daily star rating. Okay, so we don't actually have to take the date from a table at all. We can actually just enter a date as a text box. Okay, so that's going to be the next thing that I'm going to do. So I'm going to put in a text box in here. Alright, and I'm going to call this date. Shove that back over there. Okay, so again, it's wise to keep going through and looking at the fact that your caption says date, but you don't want your label to say that. Alright, so just keep everything nice and tidy over here. Okay, so when we're clicking on here, there's a little bit in the format there which then says what sort of date do you want it to be. Okay, so it's obviously looked at the fact that I've called it a date and then says what do I want it to be. I'm just going to set it to being a short date like that. Okay, again it's come up with a text by default and I'm going to call it text. Every time you do something you can keep going back into your form to see what it looks like. As soon as I click in there, a little calendar pops up, which means that I can then add a date in and it will be absolutely fine. Okay, makes sense. Take that out because we don't really need that. Right, so back into design view. So we've now got a box where we've got a date that drops down and we're just doing a little bit of tidying. So the person who rings up to book the new job is obviously going to be able to book now a cleaner, and they're going to be able to see that from the number, and they're going to be able to see what the name and the surname of the cleaner is. They're going to be able to book the date of when they want the cleaning job to be done, but they also need to be able to book the service that they need. So again, we want to draw a combo box. Okay, I want the combo box to get the values from another table. So this time I want the cleaning service, because I just want to be able to say this is the cleaning service that I'm using. Okay, that should be all done. What label would you like? Cleaning service ID will be absolutely fine. So that's the actual caption, as they're calling it, that appears in here. And again, when I look over here, I'm going to change the label at the end in here to being the protocol that we're using for the whole thing, and call that label underscore cleaning service ID. And then here again, a combo box is a CBO, so I'm going to call that combo box cleaning service. Okay, I might have to move some of these things around a little bit. Just to make sure there's enough room for it. Okay, I think I'm going to move my name and my surname down a little bit as well. So now we're getting something that's looking a little bit more like a form. We also want the person to put in what the daily star rating is. They won't really do that immediately, but it will be useful for later on once the job is completed. So we want another combo box. This time we don't have to link it to a table, because the values that the daily star rating is happening is just literally the values 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so we're only going to put in the values 1, 2 and 3 into the drop down. What would you like? What label would you like for your combo box? So essentially what that means is what's going to go in there, and you probably just want to call that star rating. Something that looks like that. So remember, star rating is the thing that appears in here. It's already by default called it star rating label, and I'm going to change that and put the LBE underscore in there, and then again, there we go. Don't want it to be called combo 15, we want it to be called combo star rating. Okay, so we are really now almost getting there. We're at a stage where we can add a person, we can say what date we want a job to be done, we can order a cleaning service, and we can allocate a star rating. Okay, right now, that because we didn't do the query the form straight from the table, that is not going to update anything in the table right now. Okay, so the next part of doing the form is actually kind of saving all of this. Let's go back to our design view, okay, which gets rid of all of our information, and actually creating a button that is then going to what we call append all of that information into the right place. Okay, hope that all sort of makes a little bit of sense. So I'm actually going to close and save my add a new job right now. Okay, now the only thing that we want to append to is going to be this cleaning job table, because essentially it's going to generate a new job for us. It's going to give us, we've already got a cleaner ID in there, we've got a cleaning service ID, we've got a date, and we've got a job star rating. So each of these things are going to have the table appended for us. So it's this table that we want to append to. So to append means that we're just going to now enable the user of the form to add the data into this table. We didn't have to do that when we added the new cleaner, because we created the form from the table. So the form automatically was generated from all of the things in the table, and therefore the form was linked intrinsically to that thing. That's not the case with the form that we have just basically built by scratch. So we go into create, just as we have done before. We go into the query design, but this time we close the show table. We don't want to have a show table at all. And we click on this append, and it asks us what table we want to append to. So we're going to say we want to append it to the cleaning job in the current database. So that's absolutely fine. So now when we're thinking about looking at this, we want to use this expression builder to find where we're appending. Okay, so essentially we're selecting first of all our form. Okay, so these are all our forms. So we're going for our adding new job form. And first of all, we want to, and this is why it's really important to get everything absolutely right. So when you're labeling up, all of those things that we've just labeled are now appearing down here. And that's why it's really important that we're getting that correct. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to append to is the first box. So the first box was called CBO for combo, and it was our cleaner ID. So this is our first box in here. Okay, what we want to do is we want to double click on the value and click OK. Okay, So what that's telling us is that bit from our form is now going to append to, and everything in our cleaning jobs is going to appear. So we want that to link to our cleaner ID. And we just carry on going through all of those things that we have added. So again, we find the form that we want. It was adding a new job. Okay, so we've already added our cleaner. We don't add any of our labels. Okay, so these were the order in which we added them. We don't have to add any of those things into that. If you're not sure what you're adding in, just open up this and then think about, if I'm taking all of these things, what do I next want to add in? So I next want to add in my cleaning service ID. See how it works? So in here, go back to my design. In my builder, I now want my cleaning service. So I need to find the thing. There we go. We don't want the label, we want the combo box. Okay, so we want the value of the combo box to be added to my cleaning service ID. Okay, you can do it another way. You can then say I want my date in there and I want my job star rating in there, and then you know what you're going for. So the next one is my cleaning service date. So I find my form, there we go. So that's the text, so not the label for the date, but the text date value. Okay, and then the final one that we're building up in here is the job star rating. Okay, we call that star rating, not the label, the combo box. Okay, so we've now got this query that essentially is now our append. So I'm going to save that and I'm going to call it query, whoops, add new job. Okay, so that should now all be done. So what we want to do on our form now, if we open up our form, rather than adding a save button, we want to essentially, we might want to call the button save, but the button itself is going to run the query. Okay, I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so I'm going to draw my button, and then again, we've used the buttons before. Okay, we've used the buttons to save things and go to next records and things like that. We want the miscellaneous one, and we want the one that says to run the query. Okay, so the query that we want to run is the one that we've just set up. Now if you notice, it looks different to all the other queries because this query is actually an append query, so it's given us that plus for append. So we're always going to be able to find it because it's the one that is right at the top with the query add new job. So query add new job. Okay, now we probably don't want it to say run query. We probably want it to say save record, something like that, or maybe even just save. Okay, and again, we want to give it something meaningful. I'm calling it save and append. Okay, and again, we can shovel this around. We can make the actual box bigger. We can make the font bigger. So if we go into format, we can enlarge the font if we want to. Let's make it a little bit bigger than that. Okay, and then make our box a little bit bigger. There we go. Let's have a look at what our form looks like now. Okay, so essentially what we should be able to do is we should be able to put in information that we want to have, and then when we click on save, it should append into our cleaning jobs. Okay, I'm going to say yes, I do want it to save. So remember what our cleaning jobs form looks like. It's very, 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 very long, if you remember, because it's got all of the jobs that we've listed so far. Okay. If you want to give it a whirl, okay, I'm going to create a job for today's date, create a cleaning service, create a star rating, save it. It says you are about to run an append query that will modify data in your table. Are you sure you want to run this type of action? And I click yes. Once you've clicked yes, you can't undo it. Are you sure you want to append? Yes. And then essentially when we go back into our cleaning jobs, might have to reopen it. Right at the bottom should be, she says, I don't know why I just don't go to the last record. There we go. That's what I have added in today. Okay, that's literally just the one that I've added in there. I reckon this was me messing around with one earlier as well. Okay, and then I'm going to delete that record because that was just a test to make sure that it ran correctly. Okay, so that should now fulfill everything that we needed for our adding our new cleaner. I'm aware that's a really long video.